Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from a sort of interestinglife.com. You're joining me on board good old narrowboat Tilly, and today we're going to take the ultimate look at the Montgomery Canal, or at least the top 7 miles of it that you can currently navigate, give or take, where it branches off from the main Llangollen Canal line. And what we're basically about to do is start from the point that it runs dry, and then follow the canal up by boot and by boat, and look at every single bridge, every lift bridge and every lock along the way. This video is going to come to an end when we get to the Frankton locks, as the boat's going past, everything's shaking about all over the place. But this video is going to come to an end just before we get to the Frankton locks, and I'll post a link in the description below to the rest of the Montgomery look, because I wanted to give the Frankton locks their own proper section. So, without further ado, let's stop looking at this ugly mug and get ourselves out on the Montgomery for some of the absolute best super rural canal that there is for miles around. Right, let's go. So, believe it or not, we really are looking at what once upon a time was the Montgomery Canal right now, and hopefully will be one day again soon. And I suppose before we go any further, we've got to give a big shout out to the Shropshire Union Canal Society, because what an unbelievable undertaking it is to try and take something that's turned into no more than a little dip in the landscape and turn it back into an actual working canal. And the fact that you can get 7 miles down here already and miles up after the dry patch as well, it's just incredible. So there you see it. That's the actual technical end of the canal, I suppose, at the moment, where you've got water on one side and then just a puddle on the other. You'll notice this little section here, though, is leaking, and that explains why there's the drop in the water level, as you can see on the stones there. So this is technically, I suppose, the last navigable by boat stretch of the Montgomery Canal we're coming up to. So there's Bridge 83, and I think this is called the Redwith Bridge, something like that. And you can see there that very unappetising bit of a dead end at the first, collecting all the stuff. But that's the last sort of part of, well, that's the last place you could steer a boat up to, and then have to reverse all the way back up to the turning point that we will be seeing in just a moment. And really, just being able to turn the camera around and being on my boots rather than on the boat, it's a lot easier for me to point the camera around and show you just how rural and beautiful and just perfect these sort of places are. And again, I mean, random lift bridges, extremely windy canal, blue skies, fluffy clouds. What more could you ever want from a classic narrowboat and canal scene? I always talk about the Montgomery being one of the local, well, the most local place to Oswestry that the canal runs, and we'll see the bridge that's the nearest one to my hometown of Oswestry that I'd be biking out long before I ever imagined having a boat and so on. There's a random little thing I'll point out about some of these signs that are dotted along the Montgomery, and that is, once upon a time, they used to sit on the opposite side of the canal. So, something like that, where it says Frankton in one direction and Newtown in another, are actually the opposite way around, because this is now on a different side of the canal. So, if you did turn up not knowing the area, it could lead you to question the accuracy of some of your maps, I would say. This is a quick trip just up towards that bridge we were just looking at, and you can see the turning point just ahead. This was an extremely windy day to be boating on. This was earlier on before I'd done this filming, I think a week before, and pretty much from now on we're going to be seeing everything from on board the boat. This is the lift bridge at Gromwyn Wharf. There's a couple of boats moored up just as a permanent mooring on quite an odd little marina just to the left hand side here, which is literally just the edge of what is pretty much an industrial estate. That you can see, even as a time-lapse, these lift bridges are slow old things to get up and start heading off through, especially if you're travelling on your own. Luckily, I had a helping hand duped into joining me for this trip. As we head down this little stretch here, you'll start to get the gist of what I've talked about many times about the Montgomery, that it's just a canal that runs through amazing rural areas for almost its entirety. We're currently passing the boat that you can go on horse-drawn trips from, just by Canal Central, just off to the right here, which is where me and my friends for many, many years have come hiring out canoes and so on, and goodness knows how many miles we've put in over the years. And this bridge here is the second closest to Oswestry, and we're about to see a little clip I just thought I'd throw in because it seemed to go down well on one of my previous videos. watch your heads. And this part here is where I really love to moor up, and you can only spend 2 weeks tops on the Montgomery Canal and this entire stretch. So I like to get down here to just by Maysby Marsh, just up from Canal Central, as this bridge ahead, right next to the services that we're going to have a look at, is the closest bridge there is to my hometown of Oswestry, where I still work and a lot of my family are and so on. And I can literally bike from my mum's house after work to that bridge in 11 minutes flat. So I'm more than happy with that as a nice commute in and out of town, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, while I'm over my working weekends and so on. And as we travel away from there, though, this is what the canal really looks like for an awful lot of it. Just super rural, super sort of overgrown. And again, this is a bridge that, going back years and years, I've got video footage of me sat on a bench that we're going to have a look at as we go through. And these are the places that even before work, long before I had a boat, I'd bike out in the morning sometimes if I was working in the nights and sit on that bench with a pasty or a pizza slice from the bakery. And I mean, I just love this canal. There's so many things that I can talk about and so many different places that I could point out, but this video would just go on forever. I've got to say, I think that little wooden bridge that we've just passed under is one of my favourite features of all of the canals that I've ever been on, and probably just because of the sort of romantic childhood memories and all that sort of stuff. But also, you can moor up in that sort of wilderness area on a very few places where it's not all reedy and overgrown. But I've taken the telescope down there in the evenings, and it's just so many of those classic memories. Now we're heading up to the bottom of the 3 Aston locks here, and again, what I really love about this is because it's on this stretch of canal, it's really far away from the Frankton locks where you come down from the Llangollen Canal, so that's the source of most of the traffic. So by the time you get down to here, you'll probably be spread out, or perhaps you'll be the only boat for miles around that's actually moving. So you can normally have a nice, calm, peaceful passage through these locks. And this is where I've taken many video clips and done time lapses and tutorials on how to go through these locks, because it's just so peaceful and quiet and just the perfect environment to do filming in, really. Because not only have you got that total rural, scenic and serene environment, but you know that you're very unlikely to have any boats turn up, or in fact any walkers or cyclists. But my goodness me, what a place it is. And again, it's that sort of thing that you think, how on earth can there be such perfect, peaceful places within a 20-minute drive of a big town, within, again, maybe a 20-minute bike ride, and yet you just never see people out here. It's really just peaceful, quiet, and as the camera pans around here, you can again see just how perfect, and it's just fields and trees as far as you can see. And I do absolutely love this spot, as normally by the time I get down here, because I worry about Tilly's engine overheating and all sorts of stuff like that, I like to spend either a couple of hours here or maybe spend the night just to make sure everything's cooled down and hopefully still in working order before either carrying on the trip upwards like we are here the following morning, or travelling back down to Maysby, as you've seen where we've just come from. And looking out from the locks, and again, first things in the morning, seeing things like that, but then coming up to Queen's Head, just up and around the corner, you can see you've got your main road bridge that we're going under now, and then the smaller, more rural road bridge, but still, it's almost more of a tunnel than a bridge. I suppose both of these are. You start to think, hang on, look at this, we're travelling here at literally 2 miles an hour, if that. I mean, my trip down, I think my average speed overall, as I did the whole stretch in one day, took basically, I think, almost 6 hours to do 7 miles, which sums up how slow you tend to travel. And you can see really from a lot of these clips, they would practically come to a standstill because there's no rush. And when you've got beautiful surroundings and places to be like this, I mean, this is the start of the Mile Straight, and it's got the name the Mile Straight for pretty obvious reasons. You can see just randomly a good section into it. You've got Random Bridge here, and these these just unusual features, like these brick steps up there, and I don't know, there's just so many things like that that I could point out, and because I've spent so much time over my life up and down this stretch, I just can't begin to tell you all the things. Like, there's a lot of frogs and toads and stuff that cross the roads at this section of road. So just to the right hand side away from this bridge, and all of this little section now where we head into the weird brick side canal here, is just... Oh, but anyway, as I was saying, I'm getting distracted and overexcited, but just to the right here, at the roadside, there's a massive warning sign with just a picture of a toad in it. And there's all these tiny little features that I could go on and on and on about. And you've got the railway bridge here, which, again, sometimes if you get the timing perfect and you're travelling on your little boats, you've got the road at the side and then a train might go over the railway above. Just perfect. All forms of transport just need, well, there are very often helicopters as well, so you've got the air covered as well. This is a swing bridge, and this is a random section that goes to just a very small sort of basin part, and that runs right by the railway. So I'm assuming once upon a time you could load up and offload various wares to and from the railway between the boats and the trains. But now it's, as you could probably tell then, it's extremely overgrown. Me and my friend did take a kayak down there and duck and go under the bridge, but my goodness me, it was extremely overgrown and filled with lily pads and reeds and all the rest of it. Scared the life out of us when a fish randomly jumped up. Anyway, again, I'm getting very much distracted in this video, but that's what it's all about. We're just taking an absolutely beautiful trip down the canal. You can see again, I'm assuming this was a bridge once upon a time. Although, maybe not, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm going to say it was probably a bridge, but who knows? Don't take my word for it. Again, that though is the start of another huge, really straight section of canal, which, looking at this clip here, you can really tell, again, when I say it's straight, it is extremely straight. And on the where we're heading to now, as I say it, the clip appears, perfect timing, almost as if I'd edited this video or something. You can see here we've got this very small aqueduct, which again is one of the few places that you can actually moor up properly to the side of the canal. It's only meant for temporary mooring and temporary mooring mushrooms, so that if you, for some reason, there was an incredible coincidence that two boats turned up here at the same time, you could obviously moor up to the temporary mooring mushrooms and let one past. But as you can see, it's just a tiny little trickle going under here, as the aqueduct itself isn't huge, but it does seem quite a big, grand structure. Now, back on the way up now, we're going to see a very, very small lock, the smallest lock for a good, I don't know how many miles, a long, long way on the canal. Got the turning point there, again, lily pads growing in it and so on. And here, again, one of those places where you've got these massive pylons that cross the canal that only really serve to go, oh, look at that, that's like a big eyesore on the landscape. But it then shows you and highlights just how perfect the rest of the canal is and how rural it truly is. Again, I mean, we're coming up towards Frankton and Lower Frankton here, and it's even that is just a collection of a couple of houses, and you've still got miles to travel before you get to a small town like Ellesmere that would have actual shops in it and so on. Just seeing me here, considering I'm holding a camera at this point, I do want to point out that I think that was pretty good parking there. So, as I was saying, this is a very, very small lock, and if we go up here before we start to let the water in, you'll see just firstly how much of a leak there is going on here, but also, or perhaps I have raised the paddles, I don't know, but you can get, basically you get the gist that there's not much movement at all in there. And no, I just noticed I had not lifted the paddles. And so, I suppose this video is about to come to an end. I hope that you've enjoyed this trip up. Like I say, we haven't got to the end of the Montgomery Canal yet, but this is a little basin with various services and a little hut at the far end that you'll see as we travel through this bridge. And as I say, the Frankton locks, which are just to the left here, I have got a separate video uploaded which just focuses a lot more on those, so you can see them in beautiful sunset in the evening and then actually travelling up on a wet windy day on the boat. So I hope you'll enjoy that. I'll post the link to that in the description below. But I suppose, as we actually arrive at our destination for the day, before I hop in my friend's car and then run away and walk up a big hill and so on, I will say thanks for watching. Feel free to check out my other videos for loads more boaty stuff, and subscribe for weekly boating and outdoors, biking, goodness knows what else. Basically, loads of scenery like this, I hope. Feel free to add me on Facebook and Twitter, and like the Facebook page for loads of photos and boat life updates. Please do consider helping me out and having a look at my books available for the Kindle. Just search Amazon for The Narrowboat Lad. We'll find links to everything just mentioned and more in the description below. Until the next time though, hope you've enjoyed the video. Keep it boat worthy, have a fantastic day, and of course, farewell.